Even when the wave is formed, if you look at it as a part of the ocean, if you look at it as the water, nothing happens. But if you identify with it as separate, distinct, different from the ocean, that's when your problems start. Because then you want to get bigger and bigger, and the wave gets bigger and bigger. If you go to the seashore, it's a fascinating sight. Wave after wave comes. There is the ocean, and then suddenly a small wave forms. And that small wave, as it comes along, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger it gets, the more vulnerable it is. And then finally it comes crashing down and gets destroyed. Right through this process, if you identify with the ocean, you don't go through the ups and downs of life. But if you identify with it as a wave, different from the ocean, that's when your problems start. So that is the formation of the wave itself is mana, pride. Formation of you and me as an individual is mana. And then you add to it. You add to it by constantly thinking of yourself. And when the more you think of yourself, you must grow bigger and better than everybody else. You know, this concept of designer clothes is just that. Atimanita. Excessive. Why is it that you alone want to wear something that is not available to anybody else? Why can't everybody wear what you are? That's why a spiritual person wears uniform. Einstein also had that. In his life, his entire wardrobe consisted of 4 identical suits. Wonderful concept. Because he did not, you know, it immediately simplifies your life, because you don't need 200 sets of clothes. You need only 4. In fact, you need only 2. One that you wear and one that goes for a wash. The other 2 are just in case. And you don't have to worry about what to wear, what is the occasion, will somebody else wear, will someone else think that I've worn the same thing? It doesn't matter. Na atimanita, no exaggerated version of your concept of yourself. Verse 4.
Dambho darpo bhimanascha krodha parushyameva cha Ajnanam chabhijatasya partha sampadamasurim.
Now, having completed the 26 qualities of the divine, he moves on to the qualities of the demonic, and he gives out only 6. The 6 qualities, all of which are in this verse, are hypocrisy, haughtiness, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. It says, these belong to one who is born of the demonic nature, O Partha. So, the 6 qualities are hypocrisy, dambha, which is a false simulation of virtue. You know, you look at anybody, the more wrong he does, the more he feels the need to put on an act of virtue. But it's fake. His whole personality is fake. He acts like a sannyasi, but he's bristling with inner cravings. Mentally, emotionally, he makes a show of love, but he's full of hatred and competitiveness and all the rest of it. Intellectually, he thinks he knows everything, but actually he has a very myopic vision of things. So, hypocrisy is inherent in a demonic person because he doesn't really have virtue. The moment you become virtuous, you don't need to advertise it. You don't need to show it. So someone who says, you know me, I am not selfish, immediately you know where he belongs. So at least among you, don't try and put on an act. Second, darpa, haughtiness, superiority complex. You see that rampant everywhere. This arrogance of youth. You look at young people, it's very interesting to see how they act arrogant. It's just because of youth. Arrogance of wealth you see everywhere. Fame, learning. A learned person is arrogant towards an ignorant person. So this is haughtiness, darpa. Then comes abhimana. Abhimana again is an exaggerated opinion of oneself, which only you have, nobody else has. So what is this? There are three ways. He says, I am supreme. I only exist for no reason at all. You think you're the best. I alone exist. Every person in Mumbai city drives as if he only exists. There's no one else on the roads. And I am the doer. If only you were to, even if you have achieved something, if only you were to stop and think of the contributions of all the people backstage, behind the scenes, who have contributed to your success, you will not indulge in this unnecessary exercise of thinking, I am the doer. Then comes anger, krodha. You know, a generally angry person, and this is there everywhere. Anger comes because of too many unfulfilled desires. The situation is such today that not only are you a factory producing desires constantly, but the world is driving these desires. So even if you don't have a desire to buy a new car, you see ads splash everywhere, you see commercials on television, so you succumb to it sometime or the other. So in this scenario, your desires are building up, and your, as we saw earlier, your level is still low. So when desires mount to such an extent that there is no way for fulfillment, this causes anger, generally angry, frustrated person. Then the next thing that happens is you become a harsh, bitter person, parushyam, rough edge, jarring, frustrated. If there is a pleasant way of saying things, you will insist on making things unpleasant. So why does this happen? Because of too much frustration building up. Disrespect, impertinence. And the last is ajnanam, ignorance. Ignorance is the root cause for all demonic traits. And so the only way out is gain knowledge. When you gain knowledge, automatically these demonic traits fall off. But also, when you make an assessment of your personality and you say, yes, I have this negative quality, it helps, because by the time you grow spiritually and it drops off, you will have done a lot of damage to yourself and others. So it helps to assess your personality, identify the traits that, your own negative traits, and make an effort to overcome them with your intellect. So if you do all of this, you're able to hold the demonic traits in place and build on your spiritual assets. Now, having said this, he continues with the next topic, which starts with verse 6. But for now, we'll go on to verse 5.
Daivi sampad vimokshaya nibandhaya surimata ma shucha sampadam daivim abhijatosi pandava.
The divine state leads to liberation, the demonic to bondage. Grieve not, O Pandava, son of Pandu. You are born of the divine state. This is a wonderfully encouraging statement, because he is not telling this to Arjuna, he is saying this to every one of us. Why? He is not just flattering us. In this city of Mumbai, with so many distractions and parties and celebrations and this, that and the other, or perhaps work in the evenings, the fact that you've torn yourself away from material, worldly preoccupations and come here is a tribute in itself. He says, you are born of the divine state. You have it in you. All you have to do is now build on it. So he tells us, these 26 qualities of the divine, if you cultivate them, if you make an effort to develop them, what happens? They release you from bondage. They release you from this prison. They release you from this cycle of birth and death that all of us have to go through. See, the problem is we don't see anything beyond the tips of our noses. We see only today, now, what's happening, a myopic vision, and therefore it is that we don't see the tragedy of our situation. The tragedy is that you're going around in circles at the same level, birth after birth, death after death. And with every birth, there is the pain of not just birth. See, all babies are born crying, nobody is born laughing. And then every stage of growth is an effort, is pain. If you see what a child goes through, right from birth till the time you become a full-grown adult, it's a painful procedure. And then the moment you become an adult, you get attached to things, you commit a series of mistakes, you get embroiled in all kinds of things. You don't enjoy the world, you don't achieve happiness, and then off you go, die. Again you're born, again it's the same thing. And a person who just takes a step backward and sees, all right, you can't see what's happening to you, but at least you can see what's happening to other people. Unfortunately, you forget. Even when we lose our own family members, the pain, the sorrow, the grief hits you at that time. But as Krishna says, it passes. And before long, you're back to square one, you're back to normal. And again, it's the same thing all over again. If only you were to understand the truth behind it all, you will change. Like Buddha saw 4 sights, not of his own, of others. He saw an old man, he saw a dead body, he saw a sick person, and what is the 4th one? He saw all these sights, and that was enough to turn him from the worldly pursuits to the spiritual. So that's what he's saying here. He says the 26 qualities, the 3 verses that he spoke of, the divine qualities, help us to gain liberation from the world, for which you need to understand that you're imprisoned. This body, mind and intellect that has been given to you to attain freedom, to attain liberation from the world, you are using to further imprison yourself. So then you get restricted by the qualities of the body, the mind and the intellect, and there is no way out. So develop these divine qualities. As we said yesterday, the Indian culture, the Indian ethos, the Indian tradition was, every single aspect was designed in such a way that the divine qualities flourished and the devilish qualities were faded out. But today we have gone against the tradition and we have created an environment in which devilish qualities are promoted and divine qualities are positively discouraged. So we need to change this trend. And then he says, the demonic qualities make for bondage. They lead to a further decline and bondage. Therefore, watch out. It's difficult to see negativities within, and therefore it is that we need the help of the scriptures. How do you develop these divine qualities? Every single morning. You know, I read an article this morning in the internet, and I think it came to me only to help me to communicate this to you. Because the writer, the author has written that for several years, he used to wake up first thing in the morning and read the newspapers and go to work. And suddenly one fine day he realized, says, what am I doing to myself? I'm killing myself. Because first thing in the morning you wake up fresh. You wake up happy. And you read all the tragedies that are happening. Then you pick up the newspaper and you read, there is a murder here and there is a bomb blast there and there's this and that and the other. And before you know it, your mind is full of negativity. So what he did was, and what we need to do, is every morning, before you read the newspaper, wake up early enough so that you have this window between the time that you wake up and the time that the newspaper comes, early in the morning. And expose yourself to this knowledge. If you don't have a program already, we have books and CDs available outside on almost every chapter of the Gita. Start with the second chapter and slowly move up, verse by verse, bit by bit. And what is most important is, just as we have take-home points here, at the end of the period of your study, write down what has struck you. Can't be more than 4 or 5 points. And try and remember these during the day. And we have free time during the day. There are times when you're waiting for another person, you're sitting in the car, you're doing things. You have free time in between to snatch. And try and recap the ideas that you were exposed to in the morning, and this will give you this tremendous burst of energy, of positivity, of the divine traits. This goes a long way. If you wake up in the morning and first read the newspapers, as it is your negative, on top of that the negativity comes in. You'll become a devil by the time it's 9 a.m. So, watch out. Watch out for the demonic traits. And then he says, Ma Shuchaha, don't grieve. Krishna assures Arjuna and all of us that you are born of the divine. All you have to do is build on it. So, how do you know that you're divine? When you're in a negative environment, you feel positively uncomfortable. A demonic person feels very comfortable in a negative environment. So this is the first trait. When there are negative things happening around you, at least the first sign should be, something should tell you that it's not right. And then you hold yourself back. Otherwise, you also get into it, you also encourage it, and then that's the end. So having said this, then verses 6 onwards, as we'll see now after the chanting, he moves on to the next topic. Verse 6.
Dvau bhuta sargau lokesmin daiva asura eva cha daivo vistarasha proktaha asuram partha me shrunu.
There are 2 types of beings created in this world, the divine and the demonic. The divine has been described at length. Hear from me about the demonic, O Partha. So he says there are 2 distinct categories of human beings, the divine and the demonic. Using technical terminology, the divine are the sattvic people, the demonic